everyone, this is outdoorsman Gary Heidrich with my little buddy Tuffy. Thank you for that sugar, buddy. Hey, I want to talk about, have you ever sunk a boat? You hardy outdoorsmen, you boaters? Well, I have a couple times. But one of the funniest things, if I can say funny, it wasn't too funny. I was filming up at Lake of the Woods, Ontario, Canada at Obabakan Lodge. I was on this big island and oh my gosh, the fishing was fantastic. I just picked up a new sponsor boat called Tuffy. It was a brand new sponsor. I just picked up the boat on the way to Ontario, Canada in Wisconsin at the boat manufacturer. But you never want to hear about 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, a banging at your door. Wow, I was in a dead sleep. What? You never want to hear these words. Gary, your boat sank. What, is this a practical joke? My Tuffy sunk? This can't be true. No, it's true. It's gone. It's the bottom of the lake at the dock. I said, oh my gosh. So luckily I'd taken all the camera gear out and all my fishing stuff out. So I went down to the dock and sure enough, the boat was sunk. I said, gosh, I fished all day. I know the plug was in it. What the heck? So there's half a dozen of us at the dock and some of the dock people, and there was an old Indian gentleman there. And I called him Indian Joe. He was a great old man. He said, no problem, Gary. He says, I get your boat for you. I said, it's in 20 foot of water down there. And at first place, it should have never sank because when you're manufacturing boats, you got to have enough flotation at the bow of the boat in case it ever sank, at least the bow would be sticking up. Well, I don't think they got enough flotation in. The boat was down in 20 feet of water. No problem, Gary, I get boat for you. So he went and got a couple cables and pretty soon, splash, he dove down, came back up and got another cable, went down. And some of his Indian friends were there and they just started cranking. They had a crank and they cranked that boat up. They got it up, put a super vacuum, vacuumed the thing out, and so the thing was actually floating again. Brand new boat. Boy, that was just heartbreaking. I said, well, I wonder why that thing sank. He said, let me look. So Indian Joe started looking and he opened up the live wells. He said, oh, he reached down there and got a pipe. Says, your live well broke. It filled up with water. That's why it sank. I said, oh my gosh. I said, well, I'll just have to load it up and take it back to the manufacturer. They're going to have to tear the motor down. My fishing in this boat is done. He says, oh no, I have you fishing in 1 hour. You go fishing. I said, how are you going to do that, Joe? He says, you watch Joe. So he fixed the live well right quick, popped the cowling off the motor. It was a 115 Yamaha. Got back there and took the spark plugs out. I believe there was 4 of them. Put a new battery in, cranked, and water spit out of the cylinders. Put some WD-40 in each cylinder, cranked it a few more times. Put the spark plug back in. Hit the start, boom, boom. Everything running just like brand new. He says, Gary, you go fishing now. I can't believe that. He fixed that thing. Whole thing took about 1 hour and 20 minutes and I was back on the water. Unbelievable story. Now I've got another funny story to kind of finish this thing up. Living in Branson, Missouri at Lake Taneycomo, I had an old boat called the War Wagon. It was a 20-foot old aluminum boat and it had a 50 horsepower Mercury on it, an old Mercury. It was an old boat. Well, I was living at a condo right on the water. Same thing one morning. My neighbor come down there. Gary, your boat sank. My boat sank? Your boat sank. It's down at the bottom of the lake. I thought, well, what happened? He said, oh, there was a big storm, last night, and it evidently splashed water in it, and it filled up and sank. I said, so I'm thinking about Indian Joe. I said, that's no big deal. And I had about 4 of my neighbors there thinking, what do you mean it's no big deal? Nah, I'm going fishing here in about 1.5 hours. I'll take that boat fishing. No way you can go. You're going to have to tear the motor apart and get that motor cleaned up. Ah, nothing, no big deal. So I went down there and they all followed me. They're looking. I dive down and I hook a cable up and I had a crank and I cranked that nose up. Went down and got it on the back end, cranked it up. Had a vacuum, sucked the water out of that boat. And it's just floating because there's nothing wrong with it, just filled up with water from high waves. So then I had a neighbor said, well, you're never going to get that motor started. You're going to have to tear that motor apart. And I said, watch this. Took the cowling off, took the spark plugs out, put the WD-40 in the cylinders, splashed it out, splashed the water out of the cylinders, put more WD-40 in, put the spark plugs in, put a new battery in, started it, boom. So, okay guys, I'm going fishing, have a nice day. And I jumped in that boat and took off. And all those guys were sitting there looking like, wow, a trick I learned from Injun Joe. Did you like that, Tuffy? Okay.